Why do video games matter? I was told when I was a boy that they're a waste of time. And yet throughout my life, they've been a source of solace and a positive thing overall. And then of course as you age, as you go through life, you kind of start thinking, well, I want to make sure that I'm using my time in a way that's productive. But the funny thing is, it starts to feel like the work that I do, the job I do, all those other things, they matter. They matter in the sense that you have to do them, but they kind of are sort of like getting up and you brush your teeth and you take a shower. These things matter, don't get me wrong. They absolutely matter, but they don't feel like the reason for for living. They're a tool. They're a tool on a path to go somewhere on this adventure that is life. So we go to work. We take pride in our job. We do our job. We take care of our personal hygiene. We take care of our health. We take care of the people in our lives. Like, we do these things. It's not to say that these things aren't important, that they don't matter, because they certainly do. And yet, those are just, they're part of the things you do so that you can go on a journey. It's kind of like putting fuel in your car. Like, you wouldn't say, well, I'm going on a trip to the gas station. You'd say, I'm going on a road trip. You might stop at the gas station. I'm sure you have to stop at the gas station, but you wouldn't say, oh, let's go to the gas station. You'd say, let's go on a trip. And then if you happen to notice that you're down to half a tank, you're going to pull into the nearest gas station. And actually, you can enjoy going into the gas station. You go in there, you get a cup of coffee, you get some snacks, talk to somebody in there. It's enjoyable, but you wouldn't say that the gas station is the main point of the journey. And it's the same thing with life, like going to work and earning money and focusing on investments and doing all those obligations. Like, that's a tool. That's a tool so that I can do something else. So video games wind up being an important part of that something else. And it goes back to this concept of what is a journey. And if I said, let's go on a journey, that would seem exciting. And we might say, let's go to Egypt, let's go to Venice, let's go to Paris, let's go to Las Vegas, I don't know, and many, many other places all over the world that are fascinating and interesting and exciting, where you would go and you'd have this sense of awe and you take pictures and you share them with other people and you have this sense of being part of something more than yourself, of experiencing something broader. And it's good for your mind, and it's good for just every part of what makes you human. And then going back to this concept of the things we have to do in life. Well, we go to work, we do all those day-to-day activities, and those sometimes require a lot of us. Like, you can't just spend your whole life traveling around the world if you're most people. Doesn't mean it's impossible, but for most of us, like, we just can't. Like, you have to go to work, and even if you have time off, do you want to go spend a few $100 or a few $1,000s to go on a trip somewhere? Or does it make more sense from a stewardship perspective to maybe stay home or stay close to home? It doesn't mean that you don't prioritize physical experiences. By no means am I saying that. But if you look at video games and all the different things that you can do in a video game, you can go on a journey. You can explore other cultures. You can see things through the perspective and through the lens of someone else's vision. You can interact with people and you can share that experience as you go. You can really do all of those things that would cost hundreds or thousands of dollars in real money if you were going to go on a grand trip somewhere. you can do those comparatively almost entirely free. It's just the cost of a computer and the internet and the cost of the software, and that's about it. And compare that to anything else you might do. I mean, just one meal going out to eat, and you're going to spend probably $50, which is probably more than the cost of most games you would purchase. So when you figure you can go on an adventure for less than it would cost you to go to the crappy restaurant around the corner and buy one meal. And you can share it with others. Like, we now have all these mediums which allow us to share our experiences with other people as we go, and to uplift other people with our perspective, and to find other people that share our interests. Like, there's just so many different things you can do, and you can do it without even leaving your home. Now, I'm a proponent of physical interaction with people. Okay, I'm going to tell you right now, there's nothing more obnoxious than people who feel like it's okay to replace physical relationships with fake ones online, and then, feel like they have the best of both worlds. I'm talking about people who in real life, you know them personally, but instead of going and spending time with a person or picking up the phone and saying hi, they want to, add you on Instagram or Facebook or something like that, so that you can kind of snoop on each other and keep tabs on each other's lives, but you don't actually have to commit any effort to maintaining that relationship. There is a dark side to the digital lifestyle, where people start to blur the lines so much that they can't tell the difference between reality and something fake. And if that's affecting you, then that could be something that you need to look at and think of. Okay, like I seen this news article, and it said that there is a woman who is doing counseling for what do they call them? Gen Z people, the younger adults who have anxiety about picking up the telephone when their job requires them to pick up the phone and make calls. They have anxiety about this because they feel like they should be able to live their whole life behind a screen, and they shouldn't ever have to speak to anybody. And if you think a relationship is something you can distill down to cute emojis and text messages, then you're missing a big part of what it means to be a well-adjusted human being. And I guess I'm just kind of going on a tangent now, so I'll let that go. But mostly what I'm getting at is online is not a replacement for physical human interaction. Just get that out of the way. But once you do get that out of the way, it's amazing how much you can experience to enrich your imagination and to explore new things from the comfort of your home for very little cost. And that's what video games are all about to me. And I think they enrich the imagination in a way that television doesn't, because games are interactive. You're creating something, you're doing something, you are putting something in and getting something back. It's kind of like the difference between going to a seminar where you just sit there and you watch the person up on the stage talking, and going to a classroom where you're going to sit there and the teacher's going to call on you and do pop quizzes, and you're going to have to step out of your comfort zone and make sure that you verify that you understood what you heard and you engage with the content creator. There's such a huge difference there in terms of what you take away. Then this passive, just watching TV, waiting for the next episode to start while you eat more popcorn, there's nothing intrinsically wrong with it, but I do think that you get a lot more mentally and spiritually, maybe even socially, out of something that's more interactive like a computer game. And I do think that there's different types of games that are a little bit better, games that are more in the neighborhood of a role-playing game where you're putting yourself in the shoes of a character, or you're just imagining that you are, someone other than who you are. Those things are good for the mind. And a role-playing game doesn't necessarily have to be, like a third-person Skyrim style game. It could certainly be other things, like a city builder where you're imagining yourself as the mayor of a town, or or any number of other things where you're building something or you're creating something, and then you kind of are putting yourself in that role of some other character that is doing something. So those sorts of creative games, I think, are more valuable than some things that are like a more mindless shoot 'em up kind of a game. I don't know. I guess it all comes down to, I guess most games could be role-playing games, because in a sense, almost all of them involve you doing something that you wouldn't do in real life. So you kind of are playing the role to whatever degree you choose of something other than yourself. So maybe it's not to say that some games are more conducive to creativity than others. It's more that some role-playing games are simulating roles that are less noble. Like, I would rather play the role of a happy farmer or a mayor of a nice little town or something than something like Grand Theft Auto, where it's play the role of a person who goes around looking for drugs and hookers, right? Like, it kind of comes down to, maybe you can go on whatever kind of adventure you want, but what kind of adventure is going to be uplifting to your mind? Maybe not the adventure that involves nonstop blood and gore and violence and the deafening sound of nonstop shooting in your headset, maybe something a little more peaceful, a little bit more in the territory of what you would actually aspire to in life. Build up, don't tear down, right? Anyway, I think I've kind of said my piece here, but video games can be a really nice journey and a really cheap journey. And I do think it's definitely worth mentioning and throwing out there. There's so many voices in the world that'll say that stupid fun is just a waste of your time. But they'll tell you that if you spend a whole bunch of time going to work, doing something that somebody else tells you to do, that's not stupid. And maybe the takeaway here is just that there's a common notion in the world that anything you do is fine as long as you're not doing it for yourself, as long as you're not doing it for your own satisfaction, your own reward, your own enjoyment. As long as you're doing it as a sacrifice for somebody else, then it's fine. Even if it's boring and it's demoralizing, it's okay, it's good, as long as it's not for you. It's like, I've heard people say, well, if you're rich, you're greedy. Well, no, you're not greedy. I mean, how do you get rich? You get rich by not spending everything you earn. So that's literally the definition of not greedy. When you could spend something, but instead you choose to save it and you choose to invest it and you choose to be a good steward of it. That's the opposite of what most people would think of as greed, and yet people will also look at anyone who has more than they do and say, well, you know, you should spread the wealth around and share it with everybody, even if they didn't earn it. And that's just, I think people do have an attitude that's kind of toxic, in the sense that they almost believe that you should go out of your way to suffer as much as you can, because suffering is a form of nobility. It's the badge of honor. And it's very close to the same idea that would say, if I'm not having fun, nobody's going to have fun. And as long as I'm suffering, I want everybody else to suffer. And that's really a notion a lot of people have. They don't know it, but they do, because they don't want other people to enjoy their life. They don't want other people to just have fun and not worry all the time about things. They want everyone else around them to be just as much in shackles and chains to their routines as they are. And so be careful. Be careful about people who kind of rain on the parade when it comes to things that you like to do, because if you really look at their lives, you're probably not going to find that they're doing all that much either. Like there's certainly people that'll say video games are stupid, but then they'll also sit there and binge watch 2 seasons of some television show for hours and hours and hours, and they don't think that's stupid, right? Or they'll sit there and do some kind of drugs or consume alcohol or something, and they don't think that's stupid, even though it costs money and it is bad for their health and bad for their mind. That's not stupid, because them and their buddies do it. So think for yourself on these things, and take some time to enjoy your life, and don't live to work. Work is a tool, and take some time for the joy of the journey. And that journey can be into a digital world. It certainly can. So whether you're going on an adventure digitally or physically, make some time to enjoy your life for all of the blessings which it contains. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. Goodbye.